Next presenter is a friend from Novouralsk, Russia, school number 41.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anastasia.
My name is Ksenia.
And my name is Sasha.
We are from Gymnasia number 41, Novouralsk, Russia, and we are going to present you the results of our work.
Over a month ago, the world witnessed one of the greatest events in the world history, the 22nd Winter Olympics. It's well known that the Olympic Games are a medium to spread the message of unity and peace. The International Olympic Committee actively pursues the goals of protecting the interests of athletes and sports in general, to contributing to the search for peaceful diplomatic solutions to the conflicts around the world.
It's obvious that peacekeeping and strengthening of international security are one of the most important problems in modern international affairs. At the current stage of development, there is a need for a greater cooperation, because nowadays the world community is becoming more and more interrelated and interdependent. And as John Williams said, the Olympics are a wonderful metaphor for world cooperation, a kind of international competition that's wholesome and healthy, an interplay between countries that represents the best in all of us. In this respect, we can compare the Olympic movement with the movement for nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament. So in our presentation, we're trying to give a review of existing opportunities and challenges for preventing nuclear proliferation from the standpoint of the sports events. Welcome to the 2014 International Non-Proliferation Games in Monterey, California.
We're holding these games to reinforce the ties between the nations in a fight against the greatest nuclear threat to international security today, nuclear weapons proliferation. The problem of nuclear proliferation is global, and then effective measures to stop this process must also be multilateral.
The games are opening, and we can see the participant countries. The first are coming out the members of so-called nuclear club: the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, France and China. Undoubtedly, they are leaders in all kinds of disciplines. And now we can see the teams from India, Pakistan and North Korea. The next group of participants is very significant as well, as they will be the first to begin the competition. During the event, we will introduce them. As far as I know, the teams represented in this group played an important part in the process of nuclear disarmament. Am I right?
Yes, you are. And the first event we are visiting today is downhill skiing. It involves the highest speeds and therefore the greatest risks of all the alpine events. The best results have shown the sportsmen from South Africa, Belarus, Kazakhstan and Ukraine. They achieved the aim in a surprisingly short time. Despite the fact that many countries seek to develop nuclear technologies, these countries formally possessed nuclear weapons and voluntarily disassembled them. The Republic of South Africa's ambitions to develop nuclear weapons began in 1948. In 1967, it decided to pursue the plutonium capability and constructed its own reactor Safari 2 at Pelindaba. The country possibly tested its first nuclear weapon in September 1979. South Africa ended its nuclear weapons program in 1989. All the bombs, 6 constructed and 1 under construction, were dismantled, and South Africa acceded to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons in 1991. So we can say that it is the absolute champion in disarmament in this group.
And why South Africa voluntarily dismantled nuclear weapons?
The preemptive elimination of nuclear weapons was expected to make a significant contribution for regional stability and peace, and also to help restore South Africa's credibility in regional and international politics. What's more, in 1990, South Africa changed its emphasis from nuclear deterrence to industrial and economical needs, assisting in marketing of more than 150 products and services in the mid-1990s.
And what about the former Soviet republics? Did they go down the slope of disarmament in a record short time as well?
They did. When the Soviet Union collapsed, several of its former republics possessed nuclear weapons. Belarus technically became nuclear power because it had 81 single warhead missiles stationed in its territory. But by 1996, all warheads had been removed from country and transferred to Russia. Kazakhstan inherited 1,400 nuclear weapons and transferred them all to Russia by 1995. Ukraine inherited 1,500 nuclear weapons when it became independent from the Soviet Union in 1991, making its nuclear arsenal the third largest in the world. But by June 1996, all warheads had been transferred to Russia.
So we can see that despite the danger, all of these states gained the medals for their efforts towards non-proliferation.
And the next event we're watching today is a hockey match between the United States of America and the Russian Federation. For decades, these two teams set goals, reached them, and then set the others even higher in order to promote the idea of disarmament to the whole world. The game is going to be really tough. The first period begins.
During the Cold War, before the collapse of the Soviet Union, arms control played a key role in the relationship between the United States and Russia. Between 1972 and 1991, these two countries signed 4 treaties and 1 agreement that limited offensive weapons and ballistic missile defenses. All but one of these treaties entered into force.
They are the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, SALT I, SALT II, Intermediate and Shorter Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, and the First Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty.
The score is equal so far. Both countries are playing a fair game, gradually decreasing the number of nuclear weapons. But the second period is about to start.
During 1990s, as the relationship between the United States and Russia improved, their cooperation expanded to include a wide range of economic, political, and military issues. As a result, arms control negotiations no longer played a central role in promoting cooperation between the two nations. Nevertheless, the United States and Russia have negotiated 3 arms control treaties since 1992. 2 of them entered into force.
They are START II, the Strategic Offensive Reductions Treaty, or the Moscow Treaty, and finally, New START.
So we can see the two countries set the goal of nuclear disarmament and are successfully trying to achieve it. Over the years, the United States and Russia have used both bilateral treaties and unilateral reductions to reduce their nuclear forces. But treaties, with their precise definitions, detailed restrictions, and cooperative monitoring provisions, may do more than unilateral measures to promote and ensure stability. What is more, a comprehensive web of arms control agreements could provide predictability and transparency to ease concerns about nuclear weapons not only in the United States and Russia, but in other countries as well.
Oh, we have just received a message that the former participant of CIF Conference from Novouralsk, Nikita, has very important news to share with us.
In the early 20th century, many Olympic athletes began using drugs to improve and increase their athletic abilities. In the end of the century, in a similar way, certain countries studied a secret development of nuclear weapons. Lawrence Taylor says, "Steroids are for guys who want to cheat opponents, and it's obvious that such countries as North Korea, Iran, and probably Israel want to cheat on the rest of the world. We are now watching a speed skating race, and we have reported that sportsmen from North Korea and Iran were taking anabolic steroids before coming out on the ring today. They must be disqualified. The use of performance-enhancing drugs in Olympic competition is banned."
Nikita, what are the reasons for these countries to fight against the disarmament regime and confront the world community in the face of existing agreements on this issue?
The main reason is that it tries to secure itself from the United States by having their own nuclear weapons. The United States in their turn fear that nuclear weapons or nuclear technologies produced by this country may fall into the hands of terrorist groups. Absorbing the consequences of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, Pyongyang assumes that it may become the next target for US attack. That's why it tries to develop its own nuclear weapons in order to prevent the United States from using military force.
And what about the team from Iran? Was it proved that they used the PEDs during the race?
As a party to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, Iran has the right to pursue nuclear technologies for peaceful purposes. But the IAEA Board of Governors has found Iran in non-compliance with its NPT Safeguards Agreement.
Really? If Iran is pursuing a secret nuclear program, it must be expelled from the games as well, because it's breaking the rules set by the NPT.
Despite the fact that some of IAEA investigations concluded there was no evidence of nuclear weapon program, The West suspects Iran's nuclear program has a military dimension.
I suppose that caused certain ambiguity about its nuclear program, but why does it need to develop its own nuclear program?
Iran appears to have wanted to start a secret program for several reasons. From its experience during Iran-Iraq war, the fact that 5 of the world's 9 nuclear powers are nearby or on its borders today. It also appears to have adopted a strategy of nuclear hedging or maintaining options weapons program, while trying to remain within the nuclear treaty.
What's going on in Iran at the present moment?
Under the interim deal in November 2013, Iran agreed to limit a key nuclear activity and uranium enrichment in return for easing sanctions by the West. Despite the fact that negotiations are still going on, there is no guarantee that Iran and world's powers will reach a final deal over the country's nuclear program.
Thank you, Nikita. We hope that by July 2014, the final agreement eventually will be reached, and this will help to end years of isolation and revive country's battered economy. And now we continue.
Now that is an urgent need for all the states to participate in our non-proliferation games, so as to stabilize the current situation in the world arena. In the background, certain global consensus regarding the need for substantial arms reductions has taken place. Let's look at the most important events regarding this issue.
We can't miss the biggest event of these games, a cross-country skiing race. 190 countries are taking part in this competition. Undoubtedly, all of them will reach the finish line, some of them earlier, others a little bit later. They are united by a common aim to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and weapons technology, to promote cooperation and the peaceful uses of nuclear technology, and to further the goal of achieving nuclear disarmament.
And we can see that there are 5 leaders in this race, nuclear weapon states. They are the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, the United States, France and China.
Unfortunately, the teams from India, Pakistan and Israel couldn't join the race, and the team from North Korea dropped out of the race. Thus, the enforcement regime by the NPT was not fully successful. Nearly half of the world's nuclear-armed states do not implement its provisions.
The NPT is closely connected with treaties that establish nuclear weapon-free zones. What's more, the establishment of nuclear weapon-free zones is also conducive to the strengthening of global security and nuclear disarmament. They are based on international treaties, and that's why they can be perceived as effective measures to non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. Oh, look, the mass start of biathlon race is taking place at the moment.
And what is the result so far?
The participants have just reached the final line, and we can see that they successfully shot the target of the Antarctic Treaty, which banned any military activity on the continent. The second target was the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons in Latin America and the Caribbean. At the same time, the continuation of space exploration brought the necessity to form the basis of international space law, and the Treaty on Principles of Governing the Activities of the States in Exploration and Use of Outer Space. In 1972 came the Treaty for the Prohibition on the Emplacement of Nuclear Weapons and other weapons of mass destruction on the seabed and the ocean floor and in the subsoil thereof.
The next comes the Treaty of Rarotonga, or the South Pacific Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty, that bans the possession, the use and testing of nuclear weapons. Then follows the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty, or the Bangkok Treaty. The target of Central Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty was hit by 5 countries. And the last target to hit is the African Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty, also known as the Treaty of Pelindaba. It appeared the last treaty so far in establishing zones free from nuclear weapons. And 50 countries managed to achieve this aim.
This competition made our sportsmen work really hard. And what about the other targets that have not been hit yet?
The Islamic Republic of Iran first initiated the idea of establishment of nuclear weapon-free zone as an effective disarmament measure in the region of the Middle East in 1974. But Israeli nuclear weapon program is the main obstacle to the nuclear weapon-free zone in the region.
And as we could see from the news, Iran itself is not so decent in this aspect.
That's true.
If I got you right, Israel first has to access to the NPT and place all its nuclear facilities under International Atomic Energy Agency safeguards. In this way, realizing their goal to universal adherence to the treaty in the Middle East.
You are right, and we shouldn't also leave behind the Korean Peninsula. A Korean nuclear weapon-free zone may be a necessary condition to achieving the full denuclearization of Korea. First of all, it would eliminate a nuclear threat from North Korea and help to maintain stability in the Northeast Asian region. Although the total abolition of nuclear weapons seems at present to be rather difficult, promoting nuclear weapon-free zone from the regional standpoint might encourage large-scale non-proliferation processes. The important elements to be discussed when dealing with non-proliferation on a global scale.
And the final event for today is mogul skiing. The sportsmen from 196 states take part in this extraordinary challenging event. But only 161 states have already performed high-quality aggressive turns while remaining in the fall line. Though it was rather difficult, they overpassed the numerous hills of nuclear explosions and not only signed the CTBT, but ratified it as well.
And what is the goal for our sportsmen to achieve in this competition?
They strive for achieving the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, a multilateral treaty by which states agree to ban all nuclear explosions in all environments for civilian or military purposes. But 35 states have not reached this goal. They couldn't do the last term and failed either to sign or ratify the treaty.
What are they?
The states that signed but not ratified the CTBT are Egypt, China, Iran, India, Pakistan, North Korea and the United States.
The United States, but it's one of the leaders of non-proliferation movement nowadays.
The United States have signed the CTBT but not ratified it. Though in his Prague speech 2009, US President Barack Obama announced that
to achieve a global ban on nuclear testing, my administration will immediately and aggressively pursue US ratification of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. After more than 5 decades of talks, it is time for the testing of nuclear weapons to finally be banned.
there is ongoing debate whether to ratify the CTBT. Proponents of ratification claim that it would first of all establish an international norm that would push other nuclear-capable countries like North Korea, Pakistan and India to sign, constrain worldwide proliferation by making it more difficult for countries that do not already possess nuclear weapons to develop them, improve people's health and the environment, as nuclear tests are incredibly damaging for people and the environment. It will be never known how many people have been affected by nuclear testing, but a great number of people die as a result of cancers induced by the fallout from nuclear testing. American accession to the CTBT would help strengthen the existing non-proliferation regime by demonstrating that America is committed to international law.
And are any arguments against this treaty?
Of course, opponents of ratification claim that the treaty is unverifiable and that other nations could easily cheat. Given that verifying the treaty is at the heart of its effectiveness, it would be reckless to ratify the treaty until the ability to detect a test has been proven beyond any doubt. The ability to enforce the treaty is dubious. The change in security threat faced by the United States may require it to develop new nuclear weapons that should not compromise the development of these weapons now by agreeing to a ban on testing. The US nuclear stockpile would not be as safe or reliable in the absence of testing. And finally, the benefit to non-proliferation is minimal.
Do we really need this treaty to sustain safety in the world?
You know, 3 countries have tested nuclear weapons since the CTBT opened for signature in 1996. And who knows how many nuclear warheads they have developed since that time. That's why we need to completely abolish nuclear tests, so that no other country could gain a possibility of becoming a full-fledged nuclear weapons state.
Then we should provide the necessary conditions for the states that have not succeeded in the competition today and have not ratified the CTBT to do so in the near future.
Closing these games, we want to address the world community with the following appeal. As we still have a hope that a global aim for disarmament, like the Olympic torch, will pursue its way through the ages, bringing peace into this world, and increasing friendly understanding among nations, for the good of humanity, always more enthusiastic, more courageous, and more pure. The students from our gymnasium want to address the world community with their appeal. In the world we live in, we cannot hide from the threat that nuclear weapons represent to humanity. These are not ordinary weapons. They have terrifying potential for devastation on an unprecedented scale.
Years have passed since the end of the Cold War, and yet nuclear weapons continue to cloud humanity's future. The very existence of nuclear weapons leaves the opportunity that a nuclear exchange might take place. The only way to guarantee that nuclear weapon will not be used again is to avoid them.
We fear that nuclear explosion may happen in a city or a town all around the globe as a result of military conflict or a terrorist attack. The consequences will be unimaginable.
It would cause a disaster that no one wants to experience. It would kill thousands of people and destroy everything for tens of kilometers.
Is it a realistic possibility? Why not? The biggest uranium enrichment plant in the whole world is situated in our tower, and who knows which country would desire to eliminate this significant part of Russian nuclear industry. Well, while nuclear weapons exist, this might happen at any moment.
If this happened in a town such as Novouralsk, it would be completely obliterated. Every living thing would die. Our family, our friends, our teachers. Not a single person would survive.
So vast majority of the population, those who were not killed outright, would die too, from starvation, from convulsion, from chemical diseases, from radiation poisoning. And yet we don't take into consideration environmental consequences that would be damaging for some other countries as well. We have to prevent this scenario by all possible means.
Without abolition, there is always the danger that nuclear weapons will proliferate, that more and more countries will obtain them.
What is more, nuclear weapons are extraordinarily costly.
And when cost of damage to the environment, illnesses, uranium miners, cancer deaths from nuclear pollution, and storage of nuclear waste are added, the price becomes astronomical.
While our governments are spending millions of dollars on these weapons, millions of people live in poverty. We lack medical support, educational establishments, and education.
Some countries have already given up nuclear weapons, and we will see it's possible for a nation to be secure without them.
We therefore call upon the leaders of the nations of the world, and in particular the leaders of the nuclear weapon states, to act now for the benefit of all humanity by taking the following steps.
First of all, as soon as possible, implement application with the New START framework and negotiate bilateral United States-Russian agreements to further cut the arsenal step by step.
For all other nuclear weapon states agree to freeze the nuclear arsenal.
Ratify the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty and reaffirm commitments to the 1972 Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty.
Dilate all nuclear weapons and decouple all nuclear warheads from their delivery vehicles.
Declare policies of no first use of nuclear weapons against other nuclear weapon states and policies of no use against non-nuclear weapon states.
And finally, to negotiate the treaty that would ban the possession of nuclear weapons by any state.
Nuclear weapons are morally inexplicable, so even possessing so deadly is wrong.
We want to live in a safe world without nuclear weapons.
And don't forget that each of us is responsible.
Thank you for your attention. That's all.
Any question or quite impressive, but no, any comments?
A quick comment. Congratulations on the presentation. It was a very well delivered presentation. And I have to particularly say I'm very glad that you brought up the cases of success of nuclear disarmament, such as in particular, of course, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and especially South Africa, because sometimes we focus on developing cases, and it's important also to see the cases of success in order for us to be able to understand, especially in South Africa, the particular social, political environment that influenced that, and I'm just very happy that you were able to include it. So
thank you very much.
So I think the presentation is great. I really enjoyed it. My question is there any role that non-nuclear home states can play a role on disarmament? You touched upon all like nuclear home states, right?
Can you repeat your question louder, please?
So your story is mostly about the nuclear weapon states. But is there any role that non-nuclear weapon states can play for the disarmament?
I can't hear it.
Oh. So non-nuclear weapon states can play a role, anything for facilitating disarmament? Okay, maybe let's say.
Yeah, for example, countries who don't have nuclear weapons, such as Japan or South Korea, or anyway. How those,
What is
They are symbols of peace around the world, and they are role models for other countries who have nuclear weapons, because it's our global aim to unite in non-proliferation movement. So non-proliferation states, they are really symbols for everyone, to my mind. Thank you.
Any other, Amanda?
Which country do you think will give up nuclear weapons first?
We hope that the whole world one day will refuse nuclear weapons, and we will live in peace, and the United States and Russia and Iran, of course. I really hope that one day I will wake up in the moment and I understand that I'm in peace, I'm safe, and I don't have to worry about my children and about my parents and about my family. It's my dream, maybe. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. So let's give them a